Hi guys, my name's Jess. I run a training group called Skyline Sports here in Melbourne, Australia. Normally when I need to get something out, I'll write a blog, but this time I've realised that I get things out a little bit more articulately when I speak about them. Obviously that's not one of them. So it's about time I got my fat head on the internet to talk about some stuff. So what I want to talk to you about today is the difference between everyday healthy eating, so when you're talking about what you put in your face every day, basically. So that's the things that you eat every day, not associated with your training or your racing, all right? And then there's the sports nutrition side of it. So the definition of when I talk about your diet is what you put in your face. It is not Ashy Bines, it's not paleo, it's not any of those things, it's just what you put in your face, okay? And the second definition is carbohydrates. They are all kinds of sugars, so we're talking about wheat, flour, traditional sugar like lollies and snakes, potatoes, grains like rice. There are different qualities of carbohydrates, but essentially they are the fuel that goes in your body, so that's all that. Now, my disclaimer here is that I'm not a dietitian. What I am is I'm a level 2 triathlon coach here in Australia. No, it's not level 2 anymore, it's called Performance now. But I'm a performance triathlon coach here in Australia. Nutrition is something of a specialty for me because I have been quite ill with a lot to do with food and things like that. I have an inflammatory disease. I've spent the last 7 or 8 years researching a lot of things nutrition based and that sort of thing, so that's a bit of a passion of mine. I have all intentions of studying sports science and nutrition at some point in my life, but that's not just yet. And as with every person you meet on the internet, everything you read, everybody you speak to, don't take what I say for gospel if it doesn't work for you. If it doesn't work for you, you listen to what I say, you move on, okay? So everything you hear about, if you like it, try it. If you don't like it, don't try it. And I'm not here to create an argument. I just want to give you some ideas. If you're still looking for answers and it's something you need to talk about and create the discussion, I just want to bring something new that you may not have thought about yet. Okay, so basically everyday healthy eating, the way I see it, sorry I'm reading off my laptop as I go, the fad, right, in the 80s and 90s was low fat. And as a lot of you know these days, you know, low fat traditionally means high sugar to make it taste right. And now these days we're having a new discussion. We're getting into the paleo and the low carb and the high fat and all that sort of thing. So, you know, they're creating a new discussion. Fat is not the devil. All right, and these are the sort of things that they change over time. The research changes over time, and people realise that, you know, just things change, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay, so basically, this is sort of how I see everyday nutrition. So with your macronutrients, you've got protein, fats, and carbs. So protein helps you repair and build your muscles, okay? It helps your cells regenerate in your body. It's like the physical engine of your car. So it's the building blocks. It's the start of everything. Fats are used to transport certain vitamins throughout your body, all right? So fat-soluble vitamins, and the proper function of our nerves and brains helps with healthy skin and tissue. Think of it like your engine oil, right? So your proteins, your building blocks of your engine. The fat is the oil, right? So you still need some of that in your system for optimal function. And I went to a seminar the other night where we had a sports dietitian come down and talk to us at a seminar at my local bike shop. She says that fat assists in laying the neural pathways between your muscles. So when you're training, and you're training for strength and you're training for fitness adaptation, you need the fat, not necessarily during your training session, right? But, you know, post-session and in your general diet to assist in laying those neural pathways for your development, okay? So, and then your last macro is carbohydrates. That's basically the petrol for your car. So where we come unstuck is the sugar is the devil and all that sort of stuff that's come out lately. So carbohydrates are still required. They assist to replenish the glycogen that is stored in your muscles, right, which is basically sugar stored in your muscles. And carbohydrates are the kind of macronutrient that is easiest turned into ATP, which is basically our premium unleaded, right? Between oxygen and carbohydrates, they create a molecule called ATP, right? And that is your fuel source, all right? So basically, you know, the difference between sports nutrition, right, is all that healthy eating shit goes straight out the window. Right, so when you start eating for performance, and this is not talking about what you eat on your rest day, right? This is not talking about what you eat in your normal meals and everyday life. This is revolved around your training food, what you eat during training, what you eat for your recovery, right? They are completely separate things. So healthy eating principles go straight out the window, right? So basically, I just want to quickly talk a little bit about your nervous system, okay? So your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, okay? There's something that's a little bit mutually exclusive, whereas your sympathetic nervous system is what gets you up and going in the morning. So you get a fright, you've got that adrenaline, testosterone pumping, right, and you move, right? So those things are what is in play when you train. Okay, so when you are running, riding, swimming, right, your muscles are active, you've got a little bit of adrenaline pumping, you've got the blood flow concentrating on your muscles and your body, and your brain and everything is concentrating on what you are doing physically. That means that the parasympathetic nervous system isn't active. So the parasympathetic is your rest and digest. Okay, so that's blood flow to your muscles to help them recover rather than for optimal performance, and it's blood flow and that sort of thing to your digestive system, right? So it helps you digest your food. That's why your recovery meal is so important afterwards. So you digest the food, you're repairing the muscles and all that sort of thing. So that's why, you know, parasympathetic is the reason that good sleep and good nutrition and all that sort of stuff is important post-training, right? When you start training and racing and all that sort of stuff, you need easily digestible fuel. So the fact of the matter is, when your sympathetic nervous system is activated, you have trouble digesting things that are difficult to digest, like protein and fats, right? So that's why you need the most easily digestible fuel source that you can get, and it's carbohydrates, right? So there's research to show that based on the amount of exercise you do, you have to have different types of carbohydrates, right? You know, whether they're single, like just glucose, or whether you're using glucose and fructose, but that's a conversation for another day, all right? So simple carbohydrates are the things that are most easily available, right? So we're not talking things with fiber like vegetables, potatoes, corn, carrots, that sort of thing, you know, even wholemeal bread. So the best thing to eat during training is the simplest thing to digest, and that's why energy gels and bars and lollies and all that sort of stuff are used so often, because they are simple carbohydrates and they're easy to digest and they're less likely to create a digestive disturbance, right? So, you know, getting the trots while you're running or needing to go to the toilet all the time, right? It's not something we want during training, and you know, that's why all the research has gone into developing all these kind of projects. So products, I mean, not projects. But again, I'm not here to tell you what to eat, right? If you're training for under 90 minutes or so, right? So if you're doing, let's say at a stretch, an Olympic distance triathlon, right? Because even I don't take an hour and a half to do that ride. Well, probably do these days, but you know, training for under an hour and a half, this is probably not as relevant to you as it is to a long distance athlete, right? So for a long distance athlete, they're out there, you know, they're pumping out a 4-hour ride, or, you know, even for iron distance races, 6 hours or, you know, 7 hours, you know, they're developing a massive aerobic capacity. This is when they need to take all this sort of stuff on board. So if you're doing shorter distances, then it's not as relevant, because your everyday healthy eating principles, because you don't need to take on that fuel. You've got enough fuel for roughly 90 minutes. I think it's just under 90 minutes that you can use in your body to get you to that point, and you're not going to, well, I'm not sure what you guys call it in the States, but we call it a bonk, right? So it's that moment when you're pedaling along at 18 kilometres an hour, you think there's a bloody headwind, and you're dying, your heart rate's 165, you're ready to cry, fall into the bushes and never be found again, right? That's what we're trying to avoid in long distance athletes. So, and then, you know, then you step into recovery, which becomes a combination of the two, right? So in your recovery, you want to get the right amount of protein, carbs and fats for your glycogen replacement, your muscle repair and all that sort of stuff. So recovery, you know, that's when you bring back in the protein and the fats between the two. You probably still have more carbs than you necessarily would, you know, on a normal day. So say, for example, I train in the mornings. You know, I want to have a meal that's probably 50% carbs straight after my training session, because I need to replace the glycogen stores that I've used out of my muscles first thing in the morning, right? But later on that night, I don't want to necessarily have, you know, a meal of pasta or rice or whatever, right? Because if I'm not training that night, I don't need that energy, right? So, you know, and all your nutrition should be based around roughly when you train, right? So your carbohydrate intake should be, say, pre-training, during training, post-training, And then for the rest of the day, if you don't have another session, then that's fine. You can go with your paleo, low carb, high fat, you know, whatever it is that you subscribe to and you follow, right? So basically, I'm just hoping that a little bit of that stuff helps you guys. I've got one more comparison. Sorry, I just missed it in my notes. I compared it to Nan's car versus my car, right? So my Nan doesn't move a lot anymore, right? So my Nan moves slowly. She doesn't go anywhere quickly. You know, she doesn't need a lot of carbohydrates. She doesn't output a lot of energy. Her car doesn't drive as far, right? So her car doesn't need as much petrol. So she doesn't need as much fuel. She doesn't need as much carbohydrates to get through the day, right? So then you go for, say, my brother's car. My brother's a footballer, right? He attempts triathlon every now and then. He's got a bike. But my brother needs a lot more fuel. His car travels a lot more far than my Nan's would, right? So obviously he eats a lot more carbohydrates because he needs the fuel because his car travels further, right? He expends more energy. He does more training, more exercise during the day because you're not just expending energy during exercise, you're expending energy every day. You know, your heart's beating, your brain's working, you know, your digestive system's working, you know, you're moving around even if you only jump out of bed and have a shower, you know, that sort of thing. Your body in a coma still burns a certain amount of energy, right? And you need to be eating to support that. No matter what diet it is that you follow, you need to support your energy expenditure, all right? And a lot of people don't like the idea of calorie counting and that sort of stuff, and you don't have to do that, but being aware of your energy expenditure, you know, your calorie burn, and you know what you're eating in terms of fats, carbs, and you know, having a focus on, you know, matching your intake to your energy expenditure is really important. So anyway, if you want to have a chat with me, I know you guys in the States are coming into your triathlon season now, so if you want to have a chat about it, send me a message. I'll put a link below. But the other thing is, I recommend, if you can do it, go and see a sports dietitian if it's really a concern for you. Particularly some of the Athena girls, you know, who want to, you know, talk about losing weight. I mean, I necessarily don't, but you know, if you want to talk about weight loss and performance and triathlon and that sort of stuff, a sports dietitian will be really important. But yeah, if you just want some general guidance and some information, I hope this has been enough for you, and feel free to have a chat and bag the shit out of me below. Ta.